Well, hey, very good day, Martin. Welcome to Brand Central Station. It's a pleasure to have you here, and I know our listeners are going to absolutely love hearing the story of not only your story in the jewelry industry, but also the story of ItalGem, which is one of the premier men's accessory designers, makers, and vendors for North America. So thanks very much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. This is great. We've been trying for the last week or so, and we finally got it to work. So I'm very excited and happy to be on board.
That's right. Yeah, we have. But you know what? Third time's a charm, as they say. So you're joining us from sunny Montreal, and that's where ItalGem is located. Now, are you originally from Montreal, Martin?
No, originally I'm actually, as I'm drinking from my Atlantic Canada cup. I'm actually from Atlantic Canada, so New Brunswick. So a small town boy, Moncton, New Brunswick.
Okay, and then you made your way to Montreal. And just for our listeners' benefit, Martin, because I didn't properly introduce you, you're the CEO of ItalGem. And so your pathway from small town New Brunswick to CEO in Montreal in the jewelry industry, it's a really interesting one. So what was it that, kind of motivated you? Were you a kid in school and you're like, I really want to get into the jewelry industry? How did that pathway work out for you?
Actually, a really funny story. So one of the great things about being born and being raised in a small town is that everything is simulated. So there's no rich neighborhoods and poor neighborhoods, and everyone's just in one neighborhood because it's small. And I had a good friend of mine where his father was a pharmacist. And I remember I was 12 years old, and I came up to him and I asked him, you guys have a pool and you guys go on trips and you guys, what's the difference between you and my family? And he brought me to his library and he gave me a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
I know that book.
It's one of the first, Tony Robbins kind of book, motivation. Yeah. And so I took it at heart. I brought it home. I was, 12 or 13 years old. And one of the chapters, one of the things that hit me really hard was be around people you'd like to be like. And I still remember kind of walking up the hill in Moncton, getting to downtown, and on top of the jewelry store, there was a Rolex clock.
Right.
So I looked up and I went into the store and I asked, how much is this one? How much is that one? Like 3,000, 5,000, 10,000. I said, you know what? If I sell Rolex watches, I'm going to be around people that are successful. So believe it or not, the whole story started with that chapter. And then I was 13, so I couldn't officially kind of work. So I knocked on the door for 2 full years. And when I was officially allowed to work at 15 years old, I started as a back room clerk for Lemon Door Jewelers in Moncton, New Brunswick. So it was a great start, but I never thought that it would kind of bring me to where I am now. So I worked all through school, all through university. And at the time, the largest manufacturer in Canada and kind of one of the largest manufacturers in North America was in Toronto called A&A Jewelers. And I set my sights on working for A&A. So I called the president every Friday for my whole last semester. And finally, he got tired of me calling and he offered me a job. So it was very interesting, but I got to see out of this job in Toronto. So they had about 800 people mass manufacturing jewelry. So it was the last of a dinosaur. So this would be early 2000, 2001, 2002. So I got to see mass manufacturing here in North America, which was a dying breed. And 4 years later, the company went bankrupt and all their facilities went overseas. So it was a great learning experience in jewelry for sure.
So now, a lot of people that might be listening to this are not thinking of Canada as a major hub of jewelry manufacturing, and yet Toronto and of course Montreal have, or at least had in the past, a big jewelry manufacturing, and there's some great brands that come out of Canada. So, how many years has it been now that you've sort of worked in and around the jewelry industry in Canada?
So I was 14 and I'm pushing 40, so over 25 years. Worked in retail. So I got to see the manufacturing, but then I was forced to actually go overseas as well. So I kept going into manufacturing. So I worked for a Hong Kong company that had facilities in China and Thailand. But I was based in North America, so we were the Asian manufacturer with the North American sales team.
A lot of brands now, of course, are rising up now in the United States and in Canada, and there seems to be something of a renaissance, I guess, and particularly in this category of, say, sort of high fashion accessory jewelry for women, for men. We saw that in the US with the advent of brands like Alex and Annie, for example, sort of everyday casual jewelry. But a lot of that focused on, well, let's be honest, most of it focused on the female consumer. So ItalGem is really unique in that your focus is the male consumer. So let's back up just a second, because tell us a little bit about how you ended up crossing paths with Sam, who's the founder of ItalGem, and then, sort of how you got to where you are right now in that chair.
Absolutely. So go back about 7 or 8 years. So I actually worked, because I was in manufacturing, I went to work for a California-based company called Tacori. So they 100% made everything in the United States. So when I got the opportunity, I jumped on a plane with my family, and we moved to California. And so when we moved back to Canada, I actually started working in retail. So I worked for Canada's largest retail chain. I'd known Sam for a long time just in the industry. The jewelry industry in Canada is pretty small. But I actually ended up speaking to Sam because I brought him in as a vendor for this large chain. So I got to see a lot more about his business as a customer. So it gave me an appreciation of what he was doing. And it was really, Sam's been at this since 2001. So we craft ItalGem steel crafts only in 316L stainless steel. Now it's a bit more popular material, but at the time he was sourcing out all of his designs from Italy. So he was getting high design, high quality out of base metal that not a lot of people really considered in jewelry. So it was really avant-garde of him to realize that, with the price of metals and whatnot, and even the certain things that you can do with steel that you can't necessarily do with silver or other metals. It's very interesting how he slowly kind of made his niche, and then I kind of joined him to help him kind of bring it to the next level.
So what was it about ItalGem steel, that you saw that, as a guy that's been in the industry for so many years, that got you excited to the point where you're like, yeah, I want to go in and take this to the next level?
Absolutely. Well, so it's kind of funny, because I say this to all of our customers now, is certain people say, men's alternative jewelry, we're priced at $75 to maybe $300, $400. A lot of our customers carry Patek, they carry Rolex, they carry... Sure. So a lot of them, they ask, why should we care about this category? And for me, when I brought them in, it was really... Our goal, even in our name, was Diamond Center. So we're all about engagement ring, all about diamond sales. And the obvious way is not always the best way to get something. So I wanted to create a gentleman's corner or a pacifier because I realized when a man and a woman walked in, the longer the woman stayed, the closer we were to a sale. So basically, we needed to cater to men. So basically, It was a much more cost-effective way than traditional marketing. Because if you want to, market to a 25 to 40-year-old male that has, good income, and everyone wants that customer. Sure. So we really created a venue for these people to come into the store and feel comfortable and have an area for them. And then through probing and through, some of our sales techniques that we had, we hooked them. You have a girlfriend, you have a fiance, whatnot. So we really created that relationship with the male in an indirect way to sell them engagement rings and diamonds.
Right. That's really smart. It's really smart, because a lot of jewelers forget about, they forget about guys, right?
Absolutely. And it's well, there's always been the traditional watch, the watch category, which is for men. And if you have a few good brands, you'll bring in the that clientele. But yeah, to cater, men are more and more, they wear accessories. They want to, look good. They want, specifically, if you get a man that's 25 to 45 that care about their appearance and they want to look better, most of the time that's for somebody. That is for they're trying for, a boyfriend or a girlfriend, depending on the male. And you really get that prime customer that is in, that buying mode for them and for someone else.
What do you think it is? Because, men wearing accessories, whether it's bracelets or, rings outside of like a wedding ring, for example, or like chains that are like stainless steel chains with, let's say, tags or crosses or whatever it might be. It seems like, man, in the last, I'm just throwing out a number here, like the last like decade or so, maybe a couple of decades, have gotten a lot more into accessories. And what do you think the change is due to? Why is it that more young men in that demographic you're talking about, let's say 25 to, let's say, even 45 or 50, are using accessories? Is it the media and like Hollywood stars that are driving it? Is it the fact that men are trying to express their individuality? What's your estimation of that?
I think you nailed it. Individuality is key for everybody. And much more now than if you look at like the heyday in the 80s and it was power suits that all looked the same, and they all wanted the SL 500 Mercedes that all looked the same. And now a lot of people, me included, if everyone has the same car, has the same suit, I want the opposite. I want to do the opposite of what the norm is. So for a long time, it was bikers, it was people that wanted to be individuals, and you're seeing that a lot more, even just in social media and TikToks, and everyone has their personality and everyone has a channel, and it was never been like this. So it's harder and harder to kind of be an individual, and it's just kind of part of some of the clothing and the fashion that's going on. I'm not an old man, but I sometimes think I'm really old because I would never be caught dead wearing, a T-shirt down to your ankles, like it looks like a dress. But it's harder and harder to shock. We are still in a shock, culture, and a lot of people want, to do that. So, I see people. We see it online a lot more now that we have, direct relationships with our consumers. But you see the stacks that they're wearing, and it's 4, 5, 6 bracelets, and you can tell that it's really matching on one. So I think it's just they're more in touch with not even their feminine side, but just more on their individualistic side.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see that reflected. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that in the era of social media and that, it's so difficult to step outside of the cookie cutter mold. And so accessories for men are a way that they can do that. And I think media is reflecting that trend. You see in all the ads in that now with a lot of accessories. Now, ItalGem, of course, as a company, has focused the vast majority of their efforts on the male category, and clearly it's been a success. Other competitors have come out also into the market that offer men's accessories. And what would you say is the edge that ItalGem Steel offers with what you have versus some of the other men's accessory makers that are out there?
So I guess it's twofold, but one of it is, if you want to be fashion and you want to be individualistic and you want to be on top of the trends. So we create anywhere from 50 to 150 new styles every month. We're always trying. Some will be limited runs, 20, 25, maybe 50 pieces. We won't necessarily go deep in it, but you just have to have always something new, always something that, there's too many people, maybe other brands, and that just really play it safe. And a lot of times when I leave a production meeting and I'm thinking, oh my God, like I hope we can sell this stuff, but that makes me, every time I'm in the uncomfortable space between, oh yeah, super sellable and what the hell are we doing, is that sweet spot, because everyone's doing the basics. Everyone, you can go on Amazon.ca, go everywhere. There's an abundance of sources of things. But when you curate a really good either new collection or catalog, and people say, I might not buy it, but I get it. I get what they're doing. So that's one of the things, of just a breadth of selection and always pushing, if something's on trend, if something is popping up in fashion, if something, we're going to incorporate it somehow. Sometimes it's a miss, sometimes it's a home run. But we always have to. And I guess the second part of that is our people. I know that's very cliche to say that our people is but we have the experience and understanding of not only, getting what we do and getting the manufacturing and making sure that it goes to the customers, but understanding once it gets to the customers, the sales associates need to be trained, what questions to be asked, so the full kind of 360 of a successful brand is not only selling great product to the customers, but also making sure the customers know what to do with it. Are they training? Are they, is it right for their market? Maybe it's not, and we have to exchange it. So it's really the full understanding of going from all the way from manufacturer to, post-consumer, even
Sure.
after, the customers bought it. Really understanding that for a full cycle.
Now, a lot of your merchants, because you have doors and retailers that you work with all across North America and even into the Caribbean and that, and clearly what works in, let's say, Puerto Rico is not necessarily going to work in Metro Vancouver, Canada, or in like Miami, Florida, let's say. So, how do you go about making sure that you have, like, how do you keep on top of all these different trends, Martin? Like, are you sitting and like reading publications and media from every single market every day? Do you ever get any sleep?
Well, the great thing, and we're actually much more than North America. We've got Israel, we've got Greece. We're just opening up a hotel chain store in Greece. So we're a bit everywhere. And I think the greatest part about our customers is the communication.
Right.
So yes, we're on trend. Yes, if we're in a big market like Israel, we can't have our feet on the ground all the time. Ask, look at data. Data does not lie. We test something. If it doesn't work, you know what? Let's not just be stubborn and say, let's keep it there because I think it'll open. No, if it doesn't, switch. Let's flip it out and get some more stuff in there. Look at what sells. And it's not always, I always find that, speaking to the owners and speaking to, the buyer or the marketing manager, they've got kind of a skewed view and a different lens. I call the actual retail store and I speak to the sales associates that are on the floor
Sure.
in back of that case and say, why do you think? And a lot of times it's oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that, all of these bracelets are adjustable and you don't need to special order and just these small things. So it's really understanding, trickling down and understanding consumer behavior. Is it really different?
Right.
Both being, from Canada, you're on the West Coast, we're on the East Coast. In our system, we treat it like different countries. It's different territories.
Sure.
But 100%, you take Calgary and you take Montreal, the consumer is completely different.
Talk to me a little bit about what the trends are in the market right now. Obviously, we have the COVID-19 pandemic really upset the apple cart, so to speak, over the last more than a year here. What sort of changes in terms of the trends of your category of jewelry buyer, the merchants and so on, have you noticed throughout the pandemic? Have you noticed them beginning to change? What are your comments on that?
Well, it's, internally we were quite lucky because even before kind of COVID, we understood that, we used to be, on an airplane full 40 weeks out of the year, not sustainable to always be in front of people. So we started something called the ItalGem Innovation Lab, and we were looking at how to make things different, from the get-go. So it wasn't a huge stretch for us once COVID hit to kind of pivot because we were always thinking pivot and, videos and doing, we did virtual trade shows before COVID happened.
Right.
But one of the things being in jewelry, we always say, we sell love. It's more than that ring. It's everything else than the ring. And I know it sounds corny, but one of the things that, the pandemic really taught us is we were right. Some of my customers had the best years of ever in their history was last year when they were closed for 50% of the time.
And was that due to like online business and loyal clientele that just kept coming and shopping and buying and wanting to purchase jewelry?
I think it a little bit. So basically everything has switched online more and more like any other industry. But I think more of it is, personally, I've never been with my wife so much in the last year. I don't travel. We don't go out to restaurants. We don't go out with couples. So at the end of the day, when you're close to the people that you really love and you're selling love, I'm sure the divorce rate is a little bit higher. Maybe I'm not sure about that. But the people that want to express love and when you're around somebody, it's I think it has a lot to do with just people really. Going deep down inside and seeing what's really important,
Would you say that people, especially during this pandemic, a lot of people have been locked down and all that kind of stuff, that the consumer has a more burning desire, let's say, to treat themselves?
Yeah, 100%. The amount of people, it's funny because you would think, you're not going out, you're not doing stuff. So some of these accessories, like watches, let's say, and some of the watches it's been the best year, banner year for certain models, and
yeah.
it's kind of a double-sided coin, because one, if you're used to going to the restaurant 2-3 times a week and going on 2 trips a year, magically you just got another $15,000-$20,000 in your budget. And if you're not going to, let's say, weddings or going to the office, you don't necessarily buy that suit or those new shoes and stuff because you're not necessarily wearing it. So again, back to individuality, and a lot more people are kind of, spending that money on themselves a little bit because they feel like they deserve it.
What do you think the long-term trends are going to be here, Martin? I mean, we've talked a little bit about how the industry has shifted, at least in the short term, it's shifted like online. Which I think is a unique trend for the jewelry industry, because historically, especially for fine jewelry, if you're going to go buy diamonds and rubies and that kind of stuff, I mean, generally people will go in and they want to try it, and they want to look at it. But the online world has created different policies and programs that override those objections. And do you think that's going to last, this trend towards online shopping, or do you think the jewelry industry will return to its baseline as we move forward in the next coming months?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that have happened that has kind of pushed things forward a little bit that won't go back. For instance, you have to make the experience better than going online. Because if it's worse, then they won't do these extra steps. However, if you get a really great, so for instance, I bought a really nice watch at a watch boutique, and the experience was phenomenal. From the espresso when I first walked in to the scotch when I actually made my decision and they were sizing it and I'm sitting there, really. You can't replace that with an online experience. Yeah, you can give me cool graphics in front of me and you can do, but if your experience is better than if the experience sucks and no experience is better, online will always win, because you just go on Amazon, you click a button, it gets you in 2 days. But if you can create an experience that is part of the buying purchase, then it's a value added to just that product. So you're not just buying that, like say that bracelet, but you actually went to a stack event and you were able to see 400 different bracelets combined together, and you still can't do that, online. So there's a place for everything, and I think it's old to say that retail is about experiences, but it's 100% true. If you can enhance the buying of a certain product or for a certain service with an real world experience, then you will always win. And then you hope that any secondary purchases and stuff, then they can just go online once you wow them already.
What's coming up and what's on the horizon for ItalGem Steel? As far as the next, let's say, season, the next year, I mean, how far ahead do you look when you're designing collections and adding to your lineup?
So we've got kind of a 2 or 3 tiered kind of approach to it. We've got really complicated pieces, which we know will go back and forth, 5-6 times revision. So that is even, 2022, hopefully for the Christmas season always. That's always what we're kind of aiming for. There's always going to be kind of that evolution of what we're doing. Gold IP right now is so hot. So basically we have a proprietary gold plating system that we put on our stainless steel. Very similar to kind of high-end watches, and it's and we're basically just evolving that into being something a little bit more. We're actually launching our new Q2 newness catalog early next week. Fusion collection. We've got a combination of leather and steel. Most, I'm going to say 95% of our product is still done in our design studio in Italy. We've got the same people that Sam initially kind of partnered up with back 20 years ago. A lot of the product they no longer make, but they understand it a lot more than us. These are 70-plus-year-old artisans, which really know what they're doing, which we trust 100%. We have our new, I just said artisan, we have a new artisan collection that's coming out. It's basically all little, specks of 18 karat genuine with real diamonds, all handcrafted in Italy. We can't do mass volume with this product, so it's more of a niche product and a little bit more, selective on what retail partners we're launching this with. But yeah, so we've got, I always on fashion, I always on what's going on. And we're kind of evolving with fashion.
One of the things that I've always thought was really extraordinary about ItalGem Steel is that, and this kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier with the competitors that are out there in the market, is that you are truly constantly coming out with new ideas, new collections, and your design team in Italy, for a guy to be able to get a beautifully crafted, Italian designed, bracelet or a chain or whatever it might be, in the price range that you offer is pretty extraordinary, because your price points, and correct me if I'm wrong, the price point that you offer in sort of the core of your collection would be, let's say, $100 to say $350, something like that. Would that be fair to say? Yeah. So
100%. That $100 price point's the magic one.
Yeah. And there's just so many. So even a consumer that has already bought pieces from the ItalGem steel line could go back 6 months later and find, essentially a completely new collection to shop from also. And I think that's certainly one of your strengths. Has ItalGem always done that? Like, has that always been, even before you came, has it always been that dynamic?
So, yeah, one of the great things that I have to applaud my partner, Sam, his eye for newness, but just always looking for newness. And I'm a little bit more, so we really complement each other. I'm a little bit more of the manager, and he's the visionary. He kind of brings me into the uncomfortable, and I bring him into the, but it's been in the DNA to always offer. He'd go to a customer, and the customer would say, "Oh, I just saw you, a month ago." He's like, "I got a whole new collection." It's part of the DNA. It's part of, brands. It's going. If you go to a store and they have the same selection that they had 2 months ago, next time you'll be like, I'd go, but they probably have the same things, So
Right.
Always creating that newness. It's been what he does. So yeah, absolutely. It's part of our DNA for sure.
It's a very dynamic brand, absolutely, and certainly any of our listeners and watchers of this podcast that haven't seen ItalGem should check it out. And we'll put the website here on the screen so you can go and check it out and have a look at some of the new collections. Martin, where do you see the jewelry industry going? I mean, you've been in the industry for more than 20 years. Where do you see us going? I mean, the COVID and all that kind of stuff aside, where do you see things going in the men's sector in the next 2 years, 5 years? Do you have a vision for the future that goes that far ahead, or is it more just sort of season by season?
Well, it's really interesting because we have such a diversified kind of customer base. We have, the very high-end luxury kind of retailer or jeweler, but we also have these new lifestyle stores that are popping up. So yeah, you've got men's jewelry, you've got cool this, you got, it's a kind of a mix. Again, talking about the experience. If your store can really speak to somebody, to your clients really well, then whatever you bring into that store, if you do a good job, whatever you bring in that store, it kind of gets the nod of credibility. They're like, yes, I know this store. Oh, if they brought in this brand. So I think that it has a lot to do. Well, in the jewelry industry, there's you're either going high or you're going low. In the middle is no man's land. So you're either being, price point oriented, a jeweler or brand or retailer, or you're at the top and you've got, the brands. If you've got the brands, they'll walk in, they do a lot of that marketing for you. But I think there's a whole area of experimental retail and of, it's like the pop-up shop, the evolving pop-up shop in a store. Instead of tying all your eggs to one basket and you're going to do one thing, you bring in curated kind of collections and stuff. And we've found that we've got really great success with, they do other things, either with fashion, a lot of times with fashion, we launched a cigar lounge. So a cigar lounge, and I'm thinking, okay, we'll open up anybody. But they had, $300 cigar cutters, and I'm thinking, well, if you have a $300 cigar cutter, what's a $150 bracelet? But I got their DNA, I got their story, I got their why.
Yeah.
Why are they doing it? Who are they doing it for? And it made a lot of sense. So I think a lot of the trends is going to be really, as much as people want to be individualistic, you can still kind of group people into, different things that they like. And if you kind of curate a collection of things that they like here's a cool pair of shoes, here's a nice bracelet and a hat, and there's a new golf glove or whatever.
Yeah.
If you make it interesting, one of the great websites that we really love is Touch of Modern. It's called Tomo. So it's kind of like flashlight sale, but one of the things I find cool is I didn't even know I liked that. I didn't even know that existed. they create a demand for certain things that you're thinking, who would need this? Well, I want, I want this, So really creating a cool kind of area, online or physical locations, but that kind of check more than one box, because you want that customer to walk in, to want that experience, to want different things that they might not think, I'm going to get a traditional gold chain or something like that, but they always go in with open eyes. Versus if you kind of create that you're just one thing, they're like, I know what that is. You kind of big enough. But if you're ambiguous in what you're doing and you're more creating a lifestyle, I guess. I think a lot of it is going to be, it could be through brand collaborations as well to create that, but
there is a major move in the market that I've seen also towards this idea of sort of lifestyling, this sort of holistic approach where different brands fit together, as you mentioned, like the cigar lounge with the men's jewelry, and scotch or whiskey lounges, and that those are just ideas aside from what we chatted about earlier, which was in a traditional jewelry store, ItalGem steel with a 4-foot showcase brings in the guys, which could lead to other bigger category sales with the ladies shopping in the store, or she's just buying something for her boyfriend or husband or whatever the case may be. So I think the trends and the industry are heading towards exciting places, and I can't wait to see what ItalGem steel does over the coming months and years, because there's always something exciting coming out of that brain hive in Montreal there. It's a wonderful brand, and I want to say thanks so much, Martin, for taking the time to come on to Brand Central Station here, and I know that our listeners have really enjoyed getting your insight into the jewelry industry. Any final thoughts before we sign off here?
Be kind and lots of love. That's the only thing I can say. It's tough out there with a lot of people. My heart goes out to certain industries such as restaurants and all kinds of stuff. So it's it's we're dealing with through tough times, but love will always conquer. A little sappy, but
but perfect words to finish us off. Well, thanks very much again, Martin, and look forward to catching up with you again, probably in a few weeks or months, and find out what ItalGem Steel is up to at that time also.
Anytime.
All right, take care.
All right. Thank you, Michael.